What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we've got our Week 6 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. So make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. And let us hear in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Real quick, before getting into our breakdown, a quick word from our partners at PrizePicks, which is our favorite DFS site of choice this NFL and fantasy football season. If you guys aren't familiar with them, do yourself a favor and check them out. In fact, when you sign up right now and use code ADP, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And look, we're already doing all this research for fantasy football matchups. So why not take advantage of it and get some profits as well? PrizePicks, well, they allow you to basically do exactly that. They have so many different player prop bets, not only in terms of single stat DFS, but also in terms of fantasy score. And you can combine them any which way you want. Super simple, super easy to use. All you have to do, choose two more players from the board, and then just pick the over-under on their projected fantasy score or on their single stat. Again, pretty much for every single matchup as the week progresses, those options will be updated even more so. And then the great thing is you've got two different options in terms of how you want to bet it, whether it's a flex play, so that way you can miss one of your selections but still win. Obviously, that's the safer choice. Or if you want more bang for your buck, check out the power play, where if you get all your picks correct, well, you win even bigger. So again, check all of that out. Details in the description. We kick off Week 6 on Thursday night with the Bucs at the Eagles, and really only one name I want to start here. That is Leonard Fournette, who has proved to be the guy of choice at the running back position for the Bucs. He gets the bulk of the carries. He's also involved in the passing attack, definitely more so than Ronald Jones, and on a high-octane offense like the Bucs, he has decent touchdown opportunity as well. I think he is an RB2, probably low-end RB2 for the remainder of the season. And then I'm sitting the other Tampa running backs. Jones, he's an afterthought at this point in time. You know, if he gets 5 carries a game, he's lucky to get that. Giovanni Bernard, yes, he did have some success this last week, but he's primarily that pass-catching running back. He's 2 touchdown dependent, so I would pass on him there. And for the Eagles, I am fading all the running backs. Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. They didn't do anything all that special this last week versus the Panthers. Sanders probably salvaged his day because he had, like 5 receptions for 6-10 yards, whatever it was. But neither one sticks out, especially versus this Buccaneers good defense. And yes, they did give up a pretty good performance to Myles Gaskin, but it was primarily as a pass catcher, and I just don't believe that the Eagles utilize Sanders or Gainwell quite in that way, so I'm passing on the Eagles rushers here. Then Dolphins at the Jaguars. The aforementioned Myles Gaskin is a start. Now, don't get me wrong. I think, he was a really nice surprise this last week, and hand up, I was wrong about it. But this week, I'll start him. Now, this isn't going to be an every week type of situation where he's a set and forget. No, furthest thing from the truth, but this is an awesome matchup versus the Jaguars. Very bad defense, just very bad team from top to bottom. So you start Myles Gaskin. I think he can have a borderline RB1 type of performance. And then for the Jaguars, you start James Robinson. These last 2-3 weeks have been extremely encouraging with his usage. You like to see that. That's why you drafted him in like the 3rd, 4th round to potentially reproduce what he did last season. And again, I do think that versus the Dolphins, it's another not so tough opponent. Robinson should see some usage, and I would be starting him as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. Then Vikings at the Panthers. A lot of asterisks to in this game to a lot of these starters. First and foremost, Dalvin Cook. He did not play this last week because he aggravated his ankle in warm-up. So it was Alexander Mattison, and he was awesome versus the Detroit Lions. So if it's a similar situation where Dalvin Cook can't go, you start Mattison. And if Dalvin Cook can play, you bench Mattison, obviously. Yes, the Panthers have a pretty good rush defense, but I think both of these guys would get enough carries, enough volume where they would be serviceable starts. And, when Dalvin Cook plays, you start him almost regardless. For the Panthers, McCaffrey, same situation as Dalvin Cook. The Panthers are hopeful that he plays in week 6, but they were hopeful he would play in week 5. He ultimately doesn't. So if he plays, you start him. If he doesn't, then it's Hubbard. And then Royce Freeman is kind of an afterthought. We saw it this last week. Hubbard is getting the volume. So it's as simple as that. But obviously, if McCaffrey plays, he's the running back of choice here. He just asserts himself as an immediate RB, top 3 running back for the remainder of the season as long as he's out there. Afterwards, Chargers at the Ravens. You start Austin Eckler. The guy is doing exactly what I told you he would do prior to the start of the season. He is a top 3 fantasy football running back. He is killing it. He is a set and forget regardless of the matchup. The Ravens, normally I wouldn't put both Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams here, but it's a situation where the Chargers' rush defense has not been good. And I do have Latavius Murray as the preferred choice. Now, at the time of this recording, we still haven't seen the Ravens play this week. We don't know what's going to happen with Tyson Williams, whether he's going to play or not, whether he'll be a healthy scratch like he was in week 4. But I do think, depending on what happens versus that game against the Colts, then Williams could have serviceable starting ability versus the Chargers, and in fact maybe even wins back this backfield, because I've said it before, Williams to me looked like the best running back out of the bunch. But hey, if the Ravens disagree, then it's Murray. He should get the usage here, and it's a nice positive matchup. So you could stumble your way into a low-end RB2 here for the Ravens. Then Rams at the Giants. You're starting Darrell Henderson, who had a nice outing versus the Seahawks this last week. He did get a bit banged up in that game. That's why we saw Sony Michel. It's not a situation where Sony Michel is going to become like the feature back or something like that. No, Darrell Henderson is getting the volume. He got banged up. He was dominating the snaps early on. My guess would be that the Rams wanted to kind of, just be cautious with him. That's why they utilized Sony Michel for a decent amount of time before finally handing it over back to Henderson late in that game when it mattered most. So I'd be starting Henderson here, and I'm fading Sony Michel. I think that was a one-off. Obviously, if Henderson is hurt, then yeah, Sony Michel, you go and start him, but Henderson should be available here. You start him. For the Giants, notice no Saquon Barkley, suffers an ankle injury, probably going to be out at least 1 week. So Devonta Booker, normally, I wouldn't start him here. Also because Daniel Jones probably not going to play. So the Giants are going to be in an awful situation offensively. Glennon throwing the football versus a good Rams defense. I think this will probably be a blowout. But I could see a lot of short passes here to Devonta Booker where he salvages some value as, that pass-catching option, specifically in PPR formats. If you're in a standard format league, I probably am not taking the chance on Booker here. Yes, he will get probably between 15 and 20 carries, but I don't like the matchup. I don't like the injuries to this Giants offense. I'd only play Booker in a PPR format. Then Texans at the Colts. I only want to start the Indianapolis Colts running backs here, Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Yes, Hines, kind of boomer bust, definitely just a PPR option, but this is a great matchup versus the Texans. They stink defensively, and Hines could have one of those decent performances here, but Taylor is obviously the preferred choice. I think he can be an RB1 on the week. For the Texans, no thank you to everyone. I continue to say it. Tyrod Taylor, he's still not coming back from IR, so Ingram, Lindsey, David Johnson, all passes up until that point. Next up, we've got the Chiefs at Washington, and here we've got another team with an injured starting running back. That is the Chiefs with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, probably going to miss some time due to an MCL injury, which means Darrell Williams, that next man up. And even though he might not be a household name or as sexy of a name as CEH, Williams is a guy that can get the job done for the Chiefs. He's done it in years prior. He has done it as recently as last week. We saw the usage as a rusher and as a pass catcher as well. So I really don't mind Williams. I think he can be a mid-level RB2 and in better matchups, a high-end RB2. So I would definitely start him here. For Washington, Antonio Gibson, obviously the popular name. He had one of his best weeks of the year in week 5, even though, there were some injury concerns prior to that. Hey, but maybe Washington finally said, all right, while we have him, we need to get Antonio Gibson more involved, more opportunities. And I think he's, trending in the right direction. A high-end RB2. I don't want to necessarily say he's going to be an RB1 because also here, going up versus the Chiefs, potentially, if Washington goes down fast, especially with how bad their defense has been, Gibson could be phased out a little bit. I am fading J.D. McKissic, just simply put, too difficult to trust, too inconsistent, doesn't get the rushing volume, so really only an option in PPR formats, but with Heineke being a little bit inconsistent, and if McKissic doesn't get you a touchdown in the department, also kind of a fade. So for that reason, I would be sitting him here. Then we've got the Packers at the Bears. You start Aaron Jones here. Yes, it's a tough matchup versus a good Bears front, but Jones is, one of the focal points on this Green Bay offense. Behind Devontae Adams, it's Aaron Jones. And for that reason, you are starting him. I think he's probably going to be a mid-level to high-end RB2 on the week because, again, of this good Bears defense up front specifically. For the Bears, you start Damian Williams versus a bad Packers defense. Yes, I know Khalil Herbert had a pretty decent performance this last week versus the Raiders, but to me, Damian Williams is the preferred guy. And in a big-time game here versus the Packers, where the Bears are going to have to put their best foot forward, I think it's going to be the Damian Williams show. And I actually think he could be a mid-level to high-end RB2, similar to Aaron Jones on the week. And then, like I mentioned before, sitting Khalil Herbert, also sitting A.J. Dillon. Yes, I know he's had 2 all right weeks in a row, but I wouldn't get cute here versus the Bears in a game where, the rushing attack for the Packers could be a little bit worse off than normal. Then moving on, we've got the Bengals at the Lions. I'll start everyone here. I'll start Joe Mixon. Pirine right now on the COVID list. So Mixon, even though he was limited this last week, he should have a great bounce back opportunity versus the Detroit Lions and that awful defense they've been getting torched by pretty much every which running back. Mixon is an RB1 on the week for the Lions. Swift and Jamal Williams. Swift is the preferred choice because he's more involved as a pass catcher, so obviously a little bit more valuable in PPR formats. But in terms of, usage, in terms of volume, it's pretty similar for both of these guys, and it is very game script dependent because, if the Lions find themselves down pretty big, then they're just going to go away from the rushing game overall and just focus on passing the football. But I still think Swift and Williams are decent starts, both of them. Swift, again, the higher ceiling, the preferred choice, high-end RB2. Jamal Williams in PPR formats, a high-end RB3, a low-end RB2. Afterwards, Cardinals at the Browns. I'll start Chase Edmonds specifically in PPR formats. I still think, even though coming off a pretty bad week, he has that, high upside to get you 4, 5, 6 catches and then, 10 carries, something like that. So I like Chase Edmonds here. I think this could be a very high scoring affair. So I like the ceiling for him. For the Browns, it's super simple. I say it every single week. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, must starts. Both really nice upside. The Cardinals defense doesn't scare me all that much. And, Hunt and Chubb both have, week winning type of upside every single matchup. So I really like them there. Chubb, obviously more standard suited. Kareem Hunt has that nice little boost in PPR. And then for the Cardinals, I wouldn't get too cute here with James Conner. The Browns have a good front. That's why I prioritize Edmonds because of what he can do as a pass catcher. Conner, I am fading. Moving on, we've got the Cowboys at the Patriots. Only one running back I want to start here. That is Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke has been red hot these last few weeks, and I think it can continue versus the Patriots. I have him as an RB1 on the week. For New England, it's a different story, though. Harris got banged up this last week versus the Texans, now dealing with a potential rib issue, so he probably won't be 100%. He's also a much more standard-suited running back, doesn't bring much to the table as a pass catcher, and the Patriots aren't meant for these high-scoring affairs to go back and forth where the Cowboys can put 30 on you in the blink of an eye, kind of like we've seen this last 2 weeks. So I think Harris, if he plays, would be in a bad game script, so I don't like him there. Ramondre Stevenson, same situation. He's pretty much the Damian Harris backup. Brennan Bolden, kind of that PPR type of guy, but I just don't think he's getting the same usage as a James White, so I'm fading all these 3 guys. And then also fading Tony Pollard. Yes, he does have more usage than in years prior, but I still think he's 2 touchdown dependent. And the Patriots defense is, not the worst in the world. And for that reason, I think Pollard could be a little bit too boom or bust for my liking. Afterwards, Raiders at the Broncos. Josh Jacobs, I will start because he is getting the volume. He's getting the usage in the red zone. And, for that reason, I think that he can be a low-end RB2, specifically in standard scoring formats. In PPR, that's a different story. In fact, I'm fading Kenyon Drake, who these last few weeks, the usage just has not been there. Haven't gone to him as a pass catcher either. So now he becomes a bench versus a good Broncos defense. Let's not forget that. For Denver, Javonte Williams, I am going to start him. We're finally getting to that point in time, slowly but surely, where Williams is starting to flash a little bit more than Melvin Gordon, where the Broncos potentially giving him some more opportunities. Now, it might not necessarily 100% be this week, but I think we're closer than further away from Williams kind of getting the bulk of the carries here for the Broncos, and this Raiders defense doesn't scare me, so I would fire up Javonte Williams and then fading Melvin Gordon because otherwise it's too close of a split between the usage Williams and Gordon. I'm just prioritizing Williams because I like his upside more so. Then Seahawks at the Steelers. If Chris Carson plays, you start him, but he's dealing with a neck issue, and, that could be serious, so you have to be careful here. If he's not there, then Alex Collins would be the guy. I currently have him as a sit because obviously Russell Wilson is hurt. He's probably going to miss about a month. This is a good Steelers defense. I think the Seattle Seahawks could really struggle here. It'd be Geno Smith, Alex Collins. I think you're going to have to rely on him as a pass catcher. I don't have all the faith in the world for him to do that, so I'd be sitting him here, potentially even if Chris Carson doesn't play. For the Steelers, Najee Harris, a really nice piece. His usage will go up as a pass catcher in PPR formats, especially now because of Juju Smith-Schuster heading to the IR. So I think Harris can be a high-end RB2, low-end RB1 on the week, the preferred running back choice in this matchup. Then Bills at the Titans. I'll start Zach Moss here, another backfield where the second running back is kind of emerging, potentially Zach Moss here. The Titans defense stinks, and I think Moss also flashing as a pass catcher as well, utilized more so in the red zone. So I'll take a chance on Moss here. We'll see if this continues or if this will be the week where it's back to Devin Singletary. And if that's the case, then I think at this point in time moving forward, after week 6, it's better to just sit both Moss and Singletary because they would be too unpredictable. For the Titans, this is really simple. You start Derrick Henry every single week. The guy's a top 5 running back. Doesn't matter the matchup. I think this could be a high-scoring affair, kind of back and forth, so I do like Henry as well. But with that, we wrap up our Week 6 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. And as always, let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.